The words came before the clerk had finished announcing the case number. "Let's make this quick. My husband's in session." Marissa Grant, 43 years old, sat in the defendant's chair with her phone in hand, her voice carrying the particular dismissiveness of someone accustomed to expedited treatment. Her posture suggested impatience rather than concern, as if the courtroom were merely an inconvenient errand on her way to more important matters. Judge Frank Caprio set his pen down with deliberate precision. "Mrs. Grant, court doesn't recess for privilege. Put the phone away and address the bench properly." "I just mean we can handle this fast," Marissa replied, barely glancing up from her screen. "I'll pay whatever. We can be done in 5 minutes." "We will handle it correctly," Judge Caprio said, his voice carrying the weight of decades on the bench. "That takes as long as it takes." The clerk rose, unfolding the case document with practiced formality. What she read next would transform this from a simple traffic matter into something far more consequential. Case number 2025 T. Guide 827. City of Providence versus Marissa Ann Grant. Charges: reckless driving through an active school zone, failure to obey a crossing guard's lawful signal, and verbal intimidation of a city employee. Citation issued by Officer Kevin Mendez, Traffic Division, on Friday, November 8th at 9:12 a.m. Judge Caprio looked directly at the defendant. "Mrs. Grant, do you have legal representation today?" A man in an expensive dark suit stood smoothly. "Henry Cole, Defense Counsel, Your Honor, present and prepared." "Mr. Cole, is your client prepared to address these charges in full today?" "Your Honor," Cole replied with the confidence of someone accustomed to quick resolutions. "We're prepared to pay the applicable fines and close this matter immediately." Judge Caprio's expression didn't change, but something in his tone sharpened. "Mr. Cole, this isn't a drive-through window. It's a courtroom. We're going to review the evidence. Sit down." The lawyer sat. Judge Caprio flipped through the file, his reading glasses catching the fluorescent light. "There's a notation here. A prior administrative courtesy warning issued 11 months ago. Mrs. Grant was warned for improper parking in a school pickup zone, blocking access for emergency vehicles." He looked up. "Not a citation, but context. Mrs. Grant, do you recall that incident?" Marissa shrugged vaguely. "It was nothing." "The warning document says you told the school administrator. My husband sits on the education committee." "That's not nothing, it's a pattern. Courtesy ignored becomes case law through hard lessons." He turned toward the courtroom officer. "Officer Mendez, please take the stand." Officer Kevin Mendez stepped forward, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. He was in his early 30s, clean-cut, with the bearing of someone who took his duty seriously. "Officer Mendez, please describe the incident that led to these charges." "Yes, Your Honor. On Friday, November 8th, at approximately 9:12 a.m., I was conducting traffic enforcement near Carver Elementary School on Westminster Avenue. The school zone was active, posted speed limit 20 miles per hour, crossing guard on duty. I observed a silver sedan traveling westbound at an estimated 42 miles per hour. Several people in the gallery gasped audibly. The vehicle approached an active crosswalk where the crossing guard, Miss Laia Perez, was holding a stop paddle with approximately 8 students waiting to cross. The vehicle did not slow down. Miss Perez had to step back onto the curb. The students were visibly startled. Some screamed. Judge Caprio made a note. "Did the vehicle eventually stop?" "Yes, Your Honor. After passing through the crosswalk, I initiated a traffic stop approximately 1 block west. When I approached the driver, later identified as Marissa Grant, she immediately stated, 'Do you know who I'm married to?' What was your response?" "I requested her license and registration. She provided them, but then stated, 'Tell your boss my husband writes your budget.'" "Officer Mendez, did you perceive that statement as an attempt at intimidation?" "Yes, Your Honor. Judge Caprio turned to another officer standing near the evidence table. "Officer D'Angelo, play the body camera audio, just the relevant exchange." There was a brief hiss of static. Then Marissa's voice filled the courtroom, sharp, impatient, unmistakable. "Tell your boss my husband writes your budget." The silence that followed was profound. Judge Caprio let it sit for several seconds before speaking. "Mrs. Grant, did you make that statement to Officer Mendez?" "I was frustrated. The crossing guard was taking forever." "That's not what I asked. Did you say those words?" "Yes." "Thank you for that clarity." Judge Caprio turned to the court clerk. "Ms. Torres, were there any contacts to this court regarding this case prior to today's hearing?" The clerk consulted her log. "Yes, Your Honor. 2 incoming phone calls and 1 voicemail, all from a number registered to the office of Senator Daniel Grant. First call at 9:41 a.m., second call at 10:08 a.m., voicemail left at 10:22 a.m." Play the voicemail on the record. A male voice, professional and measured, filled the courtroom. "This is calling from Senator Grant's office regarding case 2025 T8827. The senator requests that this matter be handled with discretion and resolved quietly. Please contact us at your earliest convenience." Henry Cole was on his feet immediately. "Your Honor, my client is not responsible for calls made by her husband's office. This is prejudicial." "Overruled." Judge Caprio's voice was firm. "Transparency is non-negotiable. When any party attempts to influence a proceeding, that attempt goes on the public record. The voicemail stands." He reviewed his notes. Timeline: 9:12 a.m. traffic stop, 9:41 a.m. first call from Senator's office, 10:22 a.m. voicemail left. That's quite efficient communication. "Ms. Torres, is Miss Laya Perez available to give a brief statement?" "She is, Your Honor, by phone." "Put her through." A woman's voice, steady but strained, came through the courtroom speakers. "Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Laya Perez. I'm a crossing guard at Carver Elementary School. I've been doing this job for 6 years. Friday morning, I was in the crosswalk with my stop paddle raised. 8 students were waiting on the curb, 2nd and 3rd graders. A silver car came through at high speed. I had to step back quickly. The children screamed. One little girl dropped her backpack and started crying. The courtroom was utterly silent. By the time I got the students across safely, we'd missed the start of first period. The teacher had to spend 15 minutes calming the class down before lessons could begin. Those children were terrified. Marissa muttered something audible enough to catch Judge Caprio's attention. "Mrs. Grant, if you have something to say it clearly for the record." "I said they were fine. No one got hurt." "Dismissing impact is how impact grows," Judge Caprio said quietly. "Miss Perez, thank you. Your statement is on the record." The line clicked off. "Mrs. Grant, I want to ask you some direct questions. Did you speed through an active school zone?" "I was going the speed I always go." "That's not what I asked. Were you driving 42 miles per hour in a 20-mile-per-hour school zone?" "I guess." "You guess? Officer Mendez's radar clocked you at 42. Do you dispute that measurement?" "No. Did you fail to stop for Miss Perez when she was in the crosswalk with her stop paddle raised?" "She was in the middle of the road. I didn't see her until the last second." "Did you stop or not?" "Not until after the crosswalk." "Did you invoke your husband's political position during the traffic stop?" Marissa hesitated, the first crack in her composure showing. "Yes, but I was frustrated. The crossing guard was slow." "Frustration isn't a defense, Mrs. Grant. It's a warning sign." Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly. "When you're frustrated, you invoke political power to intimidate public servants. That's a serious problem." He let the silence stretch. 5 seconds. 7, 10, 12. The courtroom waited. When Judge Caprio finally spoke, His voice carried the full weight of judicial authority. "Here's my finding. The evidence is clear. Officer Mendez's radar reading, Miss Perez's testimony, and your own admissions establish that you drove recklessly through an active school zone at more than double the posted speed limit. You failed to stop for a crossing guard with children present in the crosswalk. You verbally intimidated Officer Mendez by invoking your husband's political position and suggesting consequences for his supervisor." He paused, letting each word land. "This court does not weigh cases based on titles, connections, or family offices. The law is a level floor. No one stands on a podium here. Mrs. Grant, your husband's position in the state Senate does not grant you immunity from traffic law. Your status does not erase the fear those 8 children felt when you drove past them at 42 miles per hour." He turned a page in the file. "I also note the prior courtesy warning. You were told once that invoking your husband's committee assignments doesn't excuse parking violations. You chose not to learn that lesson. Today the lesson is formal. The base fines total $960. Reckless driving in a school zone, $600. Failure to obey a crossing guard's lawful signal, $200. Verbal intimidation of a city employee, $160. Marissa exhaled sharply, but Judge Caprio held up his hand. "I'm not finished. I'm suspending half of that total, $480, contingent on your full and timely completion of a restorative accountability plan. If you complete it, that portion is waived. If you don't, it's reinstated and you pay the full amount." He began reading from his notes. "Here's what the plan requires. First, written apologies to Officer Kevin Mendez and Laya Perez, not statements drafted by your husband's communications team. Real apologies, in your own words, that name what you did and what you learned. You will deliver them in person if both parties agree to meet you. If either declines, you'll mail them, and the court will confirm receipt. Second, 120 hours of community service with the Providence School Safety Division. You'll assist with crosswalk monitoring, safety audits, and parent education programs. No press releases, no photo opportunities, just work. Third, you'll co-lead 3 student safety seminars at local elementary schools, explaining the dangers of speeding in school zones and the importance of respecting crossing guards. Fourth, you'll write and record a public service announcement on school zone safety. The script will be vetted by this court. No political references, no family mentions, no branding. Plain truth about why speed limits exist near schools. Fifth, you'll submit a 1,000-word written reflection on what you learned through this process. Not political rhetoric, not campaign language. Plain truth." The courtroom was completely silent. This wasn't just a fine. It was a genuine reckoning. The courtroom doors opened, and a man in an expensive suit entered. Mid-50s, silver hair, the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to cameras and podiums. "Your Honor, I'm Senator Daniel Grant. I'd like a moment to discuss my wife's case." Judge Caprio didn't stand. "Senator, this is an active hearing. You're welcome to observe, but I won't discuss the case with you outside the public record." "With respect, Your Honor, I believe there may be room for a private resolution that respects both judicial process and—" "Ha! Senator!" Judge Caprio's voice cut through the air like a blade. "This is not your office. This is a court. Your wife has counsel. She has a voice. This proceeding stays public." Marissa interrupted, her voice suddenly clear. "Daniel, stop. I'll handle this." Senator Grant looked at his wife, surprised. Then he nodded slowly and stepped back to sit in the gallery. Judge Caprio's gaze didn't waver. "Mrs. Grant, that's the first responsible thing you've said today." Over the next 4 months, Marissa completed every requirement of the restorative plan. Week 1 brought email confirmation. Written apology delivered to Officer Mendez. His reply was brief but meaningful. Apology accepted. Respect is earned through action, not position. Week 2 brought another email. Written apology delivered to Laya Perez. Her response was equally succinct. Thank you. The children deserve to feel safe crossing the street. Weeks 3 through 16 saw steady attendance logs from the School Safety Division. 120 hours completed over 14 weeks. The division director's memo, dated April 12th, read, Ms. Grant monitored crosswalks at 3 elementary schools, participated in safety audits, and assisted with parent workshops. No media presence. Punctual and engaged. 3 student safety seminars were co-led at local elementary schools between February and April, reaching 127 total participants, students, parents, and teachers. One parent comment card stood out. The speaker was honest about her mistake. That made it more powerful. The PSA script took 2 attempts. The first draft was rejected for excessive political language. The court clerk's note was direct. Remove references to legislative priorities and community leadership. Use plain language. The second draft was approved. Its opening lines were stark. I drove 42 miles per hour past 8 children waiting to cross the street. I scared them. I endangered them. I was wrong. School zones exist to protect our most vulnerable. Slow down. Stop for crossing guards. Lives depend on it. The 1,000-word reflection, submitted in mid-April, included this passage. I believed my husband's title gave me privilege. It didn't. It gave me responsibility to model respect, not demand it. When I invoked his position to intimidate Officer Mendez, I dishonored both the law and my husband's service. Respect is not inherited through marriage. It's practiced through conduct. 4 months after the original hearing, Marissa returned to court for final compliance review. This time, she came alone. No counsel, no husband, no staff. Judge Caprio reviewed the submitted documents, attendance logs, seminar certificates, apology receipts, PSA recording, written reflection. Mrs. Grant, I've read everything. Summarize what you learned. Marissa stood. Your Honor, I learned that titles don't grant immunity from consequences. When I drove through that school zone at 42 miles per hour, I put 8 children at risk. When I told Officer Mendez that my husband writes budgets, I tried to weaponize political power against someone doing his job. When I called this process a waste of time, I showed contempt for the system that protects everyone equally. What did you learn from working with the School Safety Division? That crossing guards are the first line of defense for children who can't defend themselves. That parents trust us, all of us, to slow down, to pay attention, to value their children's lives more than our schedules. I met Miss Perez in person during my service hours. She told me about the little girl who dropped her backpack and cried. That image stays with me. What did you learn from Officer Mendez? That respect is not inherited. It's practiced. He treated me fairly, even after I threatened him. That's integrity I failed to show. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. You completed every requirement without invoking your husband's name once. That's genuine growth. He signed a form with a flourish. I'm waiving the suspended $480. You still owe $480 total, payable in installments over 6 months. Your community service is complete. Your record reflects full compliance. This matter is closed. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Thank the people who taught you what I couldn't. 6 months later, the systemic changes Judge Caprio recommended took effect. The public influence log went live on the municipal court website. In the first quarter, 4 contact attempts were logged. 2 from law firms, 1 from a city council aide, 1 from a nonprofit director. All were handled transparently per the new protocol. 0 proceeded beyond initial documentation. The mandatory recusal and cosign protocol was adopted. Court staff received training on recognizing and reporting influence attempts. Complaints about pressure dropped to 0 in the first 6 months. The Respect in Motion education module launched statewide. All drivers renewing licenses had to complete a 20-minute course covering school zone safety, crossing guard authority, and ethical conduct during traffic stops. Exit surveys showed 87% of participants reported increased awareness. Marissa's PSA was distributed to 42 schools across Rhode Island. It was viewed over 300,000 times. One teacher emailed the court. "We showed this to our third graders. They asked why adults sometimes forget to slow down. We had a powerful conversation about responsibility. Thank you." 1 year after the hearing, Judge Caprio received a handwritten note on plain stationery. No letterhead, no seal. "Your Honor, I wanted you to know that I've continued working with the School Safety Division as a volunteer. I'm not required to anymore. I choose to. Last week, a driver ran a stop sign near the crosswalk where I was monitoring. I filed a report. The parent thanked me later and said her daughter told her, 'That lady saved us.' I thought of the 8 children I scared a year ago. I'm grateful you didn't let me hide behind a title. Respectfully, Marissa Grant." Judge Caprio filed the note and wrote a single line in his bench book. She arrived borrowed from power. She left owning her conduct. On a quiet Friday afternoon, Judge Caprio finished his last case of the week. Before leaving, he pulled up the docket from that Friday morning, the one where Marissa Grant said, "My husband's in session," and learned that courtrooms operate on different schedules than legislatures. He thought of her standing at a crosswalk in the rain, holding a stop paddle, protecting children whose names she didn't know. He thought of the senator who tried to manage her case and was asked to step back. He thought of the 8 children who screamed when a car didn't stop. He wrote one final note for the case file. Titles protect offices, not arrogance. Then he turned off the light and locked the door. Justice, he reflected, wasn't about punishment, it was about transformation. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a judge could do was give someone the opportunity to become better than they'd been. Marissa Grant had walked into court expecting her husband's position to shield her. She walked out, understanding that true respect comes not from borrowed authority, but from earned character. That lesson, Judge Caprio knew, was worth far more than any fine he could have imposed.